I couldn't believe this actually happened. I drank, but I wasn't drunk, or I did it out of revenge because my wife cheated on me. Quite the opposite. Our sex life had previously been completely satisfactory, and we usually had it 4 times a week, even with a 3-year-old in the house. I wasn't unhappy, and I wasn't looking for an affair. It just happened. Or so I've been telling myself for the past 2 months. Now I can't even look my wife in the eye. I'm terribly depressed and thinking about telling her what I did, even though it would probably end my marriage. I know what you're thinking. Why ruin a good marriage because of one error in judgment, especially if I don't plan on repeating that mistake. But for my wife, Shannon, everything is black or white. There are no gray areas. Once a cheater, always a cheater. That's her motto. Hell, it was over before I even finished. But I don't think it would have mattered to my wife if she found out. But that will never happen. The woman in question lives 3 states away from us, and will never meet her in her life. Hell, I only met her twice, and how she convinced me to do this, I will never understand. I was supposed to help her, and now my marriage is in terrible shape because of it. I know I talk nonstop, but I don't know what to do anymore, and my wife keeps asking me what's wrong with me and why I don't love her more. You see, the worst thing about all of this is that every time I try to have sex now, it doesn't work. I've tried everything, even getting drunk to forget what I did, but nothing works, literally. All in all, I've pretty much screwed up my life. Shannon and I were happily married for 5 years. I met her when she had just broken up with her boyfriend who had cheated on her. Sounds familiar. She dated this guy for almost a year and their relationship became serious. Then he did a typical stupid guy thing. I went to a bachelor party, got drunk, and one of the dancers gave me pleasure. Somehow Shannon found out about this. One of the guys couldn't keep his mouth shut, and she dropped him like a hot potato. It happened so quickly, he didn't even have time to understand what happened. No talking, no affection. She just slammed the door, and it was over. We met at a party and had a great time there. The mood was so good that we started dating, and after 3 months we became an exclusive couple. She saw me about 2 weeks later when I was having coffee with an ex-girlfriend. She didn't say anything until Friday night when I tried to get a little closer. She was cold all evening, and when I tried to kiss her, she stopped me. "Are you sure that you need me for kisses? Maybe you need someone taller with, say, blonde hair." Shannon has dark brown hair. "What are you talking about?" I asked. "I saw you with your ex-girlfriend, Steve. Am I not good enough for you all of a sudden? What are you doing? Getting a little extra on the side while I'm at class? You men are all the same. You just can't keep your dignity in check." "Pants, right?" she screamed at me. I just stared at her in amazement. "What the hell are you talking about?" I asked a second time. "I saw you, Steve. I saw you with Tammy on Tuesday night. Are you denying it?" she said, standing with her arms crossed in front of her. "No, I had coffee with her, that's all." I walked in, saw her sitting there, and came over to say hello. There was no kissing, and I certainly didn't sleep on the table with her, I said, annoyed. "Why didn't you just come and say something instead of letting it build up all week?" "Damn, I love you, Shannon. I would never cheat on you," I said, hugging her tightly. "If you want, we can go to Tammy's together, and you can hear her version if necessary." "I'm sorry, Steve," Shannon said, looking into my eyes. "I just didn't want to date a guy I couldn't trust again. Sorry," she said, kissing me. She was apologetic, and she compensated me very well that night. It wasn't make-up sex. It was more like violence, but I really enjoyed it. After that night, they didn't talk about it anymore. We moved forward, and a year later, we got married in front of God and everyone. We vowed to each other, and were happy as only 2 people can be. When we had Danny, we became the family we both dreamed of. The only thing we were missing was a cute little house with a white picket fence, and we bought it a year and a half later. Damn, we had everything. With my bachelor's degree in business, I worked as a coordinator between our purchasing staff and field installation crews. I planned the workflow and materials for the objects, and was pretty good at it. I was detail-oriented and had the ability to work with difficult clients. I was always looking for potential problems, so I was never caught off guard. We always meet deadlines and sometimes even come within budget. The only problem was that every couple of weeks I had to visit one of the sites. At best, I was away for one, maximum 2 nights. It was a small price to pay for the money I was bringing home. Shannon worked about 3/4 of the time at a small law firm, and her mother was more than happy to take care of Danny while she was at work. Did life seem perfect? That is how it was until my trip came 2 months ago. The project had just completed, and I was conducting a final inspection before government inspectors visited. I found a few minor issues and had to call 2 guys back to fix them. I called work, then Shannon, and let everyone know that I would be staying an extra day, but not to worry. I made sure everything would be completed before I left. So now I had nothing to do for the next 2 days except be bored until the repairs and inspection were completed. The hotel had a nice bar and restaurant, so at 5:30 I was sitting at the bar sipping a cold drink when she walked in. She wasn't a beauty, but she looked good. She was about my age, 28, and even from 20 feet you could tell she was stressed. She sat down on a chair about 3 chairs away from me and ordered a glass of wine. She drank it in one gulp and ordered another. Looks like someone is not having a good day, I thought to myself as I glanced at the TV behind the bar, watching the news. When she began to sob quietly, I tried not to pay attention, but finally, when I looked at her, our eyes met, and that was enough. "Are you okay?" I asked. She didn't say anything at first, just stared at her empty glass of wine before starting to sob again. "No, I don't think I'll ever be okay again," she said quietly, looking at me like a puppy caught in the rain. I knew I should have left, but being the kind guy I am and having a soft spot for puppies, I told the bartender to get her more wine and moved to the chair next to her. "Are you okay?" I asked again. "Not really. I'm having a really bad day and I don't know what to do," she told me. "My name is Steve Moore," I said. "And you?" "Mrs. Chris Martin, or I was until a couple of hours ago," she sobbed. "Now I'm not sure anymore," she said, tears streaming down her face. "Sorry, I don't want to bother you with my problems." "Nonsense. Chris, maybe I can help," I said, opening the door that should have been left closed. We talked for the next hour and a half as she told me her story of heartbreak. I suggested dinner because I told her she shouldn't drink on an empty stomach. By 9 o'clock in the evening, I knew everything. Her husband, Keith, was a sales representative and had been having an affair with one of his clients for the past couple of months. Chris said Keith confessed and told her everything about his affair, but his client put pressure on him, not wanting to end the relationship. She wanted to continue the affair and even threatened to tell his boss. I know he didn't do it intentionally, but even now he doesn't understand what it did to me. He keeps telling me to forget about it, that we need to move forward and put it behind us, she told me. But he doesn't understand how much pain it caused me. Every time I think about it, I feel like I've been punched in the stomach. I don't know how I'll ever get over this, she continued to tell me. I knew I should have just been quiet and listened. Damn, that's all she did. Use me as a sounding board to get it out before she went crazy. By 10:30, she said it was time for her to go to bed. She took a hotel room, if for no other reason than to try to get some sleep, because all they did at home was fight. "Maybe I'll see you at breakfast," Chris told me as we headed to our rooms. I called Shannon and told her I missed her and that I would see her in 2 days. I don't know why, but I didn't say anything about Chris. Maybe because I thought Shannon wouldn't approve of me having that conversation with another married woman. I don't know. Whatever the reason, I now wished that I had said something. Maybe then it would raise a red flag and bring me to my senses. I saw Chris at breakfast. "You look much better this morning," I said, finishing my coffee. "Thanks to you, I slept well for the first time in a week." "Glad I could help. Are you coming home today?" I asked. "No, I'm staying in my room one more night. And for the first time, I'm starting to think clearly and see how I want to solve my situation, she told me. Maybe I'll see you later and we can talk again, Chris said with a smile. I'd like that. Let's meet at the bar around 6. Deal, Chris replied. Well, I need to go and finish my inspections today so I can leave tomorrow morning. See you later, I said as I left. Believe it or not, I wasn't thinking about meeting Chris for dinner. It must have been nice to have company while I was away on business. Sometimes you go a little crazy when you eat alone every night and spend your evenings in front of the TV. Little did I know that Chris had a plan to get revenge on her husband for cheating on her, which unfortunately included me. The repairs and additions were completed by 3:00 p.m. that day. A government inspector visited the construction site just before 4 p.m. and left by 5:30 p.m. without finding a single problem. It's time to celebrate. I called the office and gave them the good news, and a few minutes before 6:00 p.m. I called Shannon and told her I would see her tomorrow. I missed you so much, honey, I told her. Let's plan dinner for tomorrow night, so find a babysitter for Danny. We'll have a reason to celebrate, I told her. Looking at the time, I said that I had to go and would be home somewhere around 14:00 and hung up. When I saw Chris, I was still on cloud 9, and even she seemed to be in a better mood that evening. We had 2 drinks before dinner and a bottle or 2 of wine during dinner. Everything was going great until Chris told me about her plan. I finally figured out how to get back at Keith for what he did, Chris told me, sipping her wine. He still doesn't feel the full impact of what he did and keeps telling me to forget about it and move forward. But I have another idea, she said, pouring herself more wine. But I'll need your help, she told me. What are you up to? I asked. A little revenge, something that will make him think twice about cheating on me again. I don't think you should do this, Chris. 2 wrongs don't make a right, I warned her. I'm not going to do this for real. I'm going to stage it, film it, and send it to him, Chris said, pouring the wine again. That's where you come into play, Steve. Chris, I have a bad feeling about this. I don't think anything good can come out of this, I tried to convince her. What will he do to me? Divorce me for cheating? Come on, Steve. This is my only chance to show him what it's like to be deceived. Besides, I'm not going to actually do it. I'm just going to pretend, she explained. To me. Chris, I know I said I would help you, but this is too much. And besides, I would never cheat on Shannon, I tried to tell her. And you won't. I have a digital camera, and we just need to lie in bed and pretend we're having sex. That way I'll get my revenge, and you'll keep your honor. Come on, Steve, it'll be fun, said Chris with a sly smile. How often do beautiful blondes invite you, huh? I knew I should have said no, thanked her for a nice evening, and gone back to my room to pack for tomorrow's flight. But I didn't. The more she talked, the more it seemed like a small thing. I don't remember agreeing, but the next thing I know, we were in her room setting up the camera and bed. Steve, lie down on the bed so I can set up the camera, she told me. Take off the blanket and leave just the sheets and pillows on the bed, she instructed, placing 2 books under the camera to raise it to the desired height. She checked by taking about 10 seconds of video, reviewed it, and we were ready. I need 1 more glass of wine before we start, I said to Chris when I thought it was no big deal. Me too, Chris said, taking off her jacket. Revenge for the operation, she said, raising her glass. Chris, let's get this over with, I said, starting to undress. Steve, I hope you don't get embarrassed easily, because I'm going to have to take my blouse off to make it look real, she said, letting her skirt fall to the floor and removing her tights before starting to take off her blouse. I feel so naughty, she said, taking another sip of wine. I feel like I'm in one of those adult movies, I told her. Lights, camera, motor, I said with a laugh, still in my shorts. Make sure the sound is on mute in case one of us laughs, I told her, still taking it in stride. Well observed, Chris said, turning off the sound and getting ready. You get into bed first so I can turn it on and make my grand entrance, she told me. After this, we'll play by ear, and when we're done, I'll just turn off the table light, she told me. I got into bed and joked, jumping up and down on the bed and yelling, "Come on, get your hot body over here. We have a lot of scenes to film in the next 15 minutes, laughing as I crawled under the sheets. "Steve, pull the sheet off my side of the bed," she told me. I took off my bra, and I'll have to take off my panties too, because no one goes to bed with clothes on if they're going to have sex, she said, standing completely naked in front of me. Damn, she's amazing. On a scale of 1 to 10, her body is an 11. How could her husband neglect that? She's beautiful, I thought to myself, trying not to get aroused, but it was hopeless. "Here I am," Chris said, slowly walking towards the bed, pausing for a moment before slipping under the sheets. "Okay, Steve, kiss me and do it convincingly, and then follow me," she said, turning slightly sideways so the camera could capture the whole action. We continued for a couple more minutes. I followed her directions like a teenage star. She leaned back and told me to come down as if I was making her feel good. Oh God, it was so wonderful that I didn't want it to end. She came up to me and we started having sex. My real brain finally turned on, making it clear that this was now pure betrayal, but it was too late. "Chris, we can't do this," was all I managed to say. I turned off the side light and it was over, really over. "Oh God, Steve, I'm so sorry. It looks like we got carried away," said Chris, who was looking for her robe while I started getting dressed. "This is all my fault. I should never have talked you into this," she tried to apologize, seeing that I was not happy. "No, it's my fault, especially when I let it get out of hand," I told her as I put on my pants and finally my shoes. "I hope things work out for you and your husband, but if I were you, I wouldn't show him this tape." "I'm so sorry about this, Steve. Don't get me wrong, I loved every minute of it, but I got you involved in my problems when I should have just kept my mouth shut," she tried to console me. "Don't worry, I'll survive. But if you don't mind, I need to go back to my room and pack my things for my flight tomorrow morning." She hugged me and kissed my cheek as she watched me walk down the hallway. After 20 minutes in the shower, I could still smell her on me, or at least I thought I did. I think that smell was burned into my brain as I tried to justify what I did, telling myself that I did it to help Chris. I blamed myself for cheating on my wife, the love of my life, and tried to figure out how I could look her in the eyes now. I stayed up all night and was in a daze walking through the airport the next morning. I replayed the events of last night over and over again in my mind until it was all I could think about. The flight was too short. I needed more time to decide what the hell I should do. The hour-long drive from the airport couldn't have been better, and when I pulled into my driveway, I was grateful that Shannon wasn't home. I unpacked and placed the dirty clothes in the laundry basket. Shannon ran into the house kissing and hugging me while I just smiled stupidly at her. She asked if I was ready for a little unscheduled new activity or should I wait until dinner. I lied and said that I had a few things to finish before work tomorrow and that I didn't feel okay. "God, I hope you don't catch that flu that's going around," she said, feeling my forehead. "You're not hot, but just in case, finish your work and go to bed. Let's cancel dinner for today. I'll get you some soup, and if you feel better later, maybe you'll let me take advantage of you, like you know I can." Damn, I just need some time at home to recover, I thought to myself. It wasn't me looking for this, it found me. Besides, this will never happen again and Chris is the past, I kept telling myself. And for a while, I almost believed it. 2 days later, I was lying in bed waiting for my wife to come out of the bathroom. I was going to make love to her with such intensity that she would never let me leave town again. But it didn't lead to anything. Could get excited. "Let's come back to this in a few days when I'm better," I told her. "Maybe you shouldn't kiss me either. I wouldn't want you to get infected and pass it on to Danny." "I'll make up for it this weekend," I said, not believing a word that was coming out of my mouth. Shannon kissed my forehead and told me to get a good night's sleep, but I couldn't sleep that night or after. So for the next 2 months, my body shut down. I was moody, depressed, and basically a walking dead man. I could please her, but I never get excited. I couldn't get Chris out of my head and even went to a hypnotist to try and block out the memories of that night. But it didn't work. Shannon made me undergo a full medical examination, and when nothing was found, she wanted me to see a psychiatrist. I told her no, that I could figure it out myself, but she got angry. Damn, Steve, it's been over 2 months. If you could fix this, you would have done it by now, she told me. I'm making an appointment for you. She didn't take no for an answer. Believe it or not, talking really helped. He understood why I did it, but he didn't understand why I let it get this far. I convinced both him and myself that I still loved Shannon and Danny, and he finally convinced me to confess, and we agreed that Friday would be the day, until something happened on Thursday night at dinner. We were invited by my boss and his wife to dinner on Thursday night as a sort of thank you for all my hard work. I felt pretty good about my decision and was almost excited for Friday. The food was amazing, the conversation was light, and we even danced a half-dozen times. Right before we were about to leave, Shannon closed the door for the next day's conversation. Looking at the dance floor, she recognized someone we both knew years ago. "Steve, look," Shannon said, pointing to a man dancing with an attractive woman. "There's that idiot Bill and his bitch of the month. He was married to a good friend of ours before she caught him cheating. Mandy kicked him the hell out and took everything she could from him. A man who cheats on his wife is no better whale shit," she announced to our group. My boss and his wife agreed with her, and I just sat there with that stupid look on my face for the umpteenth time. I was dead. "Steve, you need to change doctors," Shannon yelled at me a week later. "The one you go to doesn't solve your problem. Maybe you should try that little blue pill they advertise on TV. Maybe it will help you," she said, already grasping at straws. I knew what my problem was, and I knew how to solve it, but I wasn't ready for it yet. But it was close. I still satisfied her, but now she stopped asking. Hell, we barely kissed anymore. When I tried to cuddle with her on Tuesday, she pulled away for the first time in our marriage. And yes, I tried that little blue pill, and for a while I thought we had solved our problem. But then I went back to being soft like always. After a couple of weeks, Shannon started going out in the evenings with a few friends from work. She started coming back later and later, and when I said something about it, she said she needed time away from Danny and me to relax. I was losing her, but in fact, I had already lost her. The next week I said enough was enough. This must end. Shannon went out with her friends and told me not to wait for her because she would be back late. "Shannon, I'll be waiting for you when you get back," I told her as I watched her leave with her friends. 23 Ziziazen, Zawanazan came and went, and there was no Shannon. I was panicking and ready to call the police when she walked through the door, or should I say, barged in, supported by a tall man with dark hair. "Steve, this is Roger." "Roger, this is my husband," she said, fishing for words. "Roger is going to have sex with me again tonight because you can't take it anymore and I really need it." I told him you don't care, so if you don't mind, we'll get started, she said, leaning against the wall. "You have 3 seconds to get away before I kill you," I told Roger. He left in less than 2. "Now look at what you've done. How do you expect me to have sex if you drive them all away?" she said, looking at me. "Come on, Shannon, it's time for bed," I said, almost carrying her upstairs. I started to undress her, but she resisted every step of the way. "I can undress myself. I don't need your damn help," she said as I watched her take off her clothes. When she was left in her bra and panties, I saw it. I saw everything. There were bruises on her chest and her panties were wet. "Oh, you weren't supposed to see that," she said, covering her mouth as she swayed a little. "Looks like I went a little overboard today," she said. "Well, if you weren't going to use it, I found someone who was, and it was great," she shouted to me. I pushed her back and laid her on the bed. "What are you going to do now, big guy? Are you going to beat me up for getting something you can't give me? You're a powerless moron. I think I was going crazy. I tore off my shirt, buttons flying all over the room as she continued to tease me. Oh, I was so scared, she said, reaching for her nightstand. Here, if you need anything, I have a sex toy, she said, throwing it to me with a laugh. For the first time in months, I felt horny. I tore off my pants, jumped on the bed, and had hard sex for the first time in months. It wasn't forced, but it was a far cry from the loving relationship we'd held for the last 5 years. What the hell did I just do? I asked myself. I felt nauseous and ran to the bathroom, throwing up dinner and what was left of my marriage into the toilet. Shannon was now completely unconscious, thankfully. I came to my senses and went to the closet in the hallway. He took out 2 large suitcases and threw them on the bedroom floor. I filled them with everything I could hold. I'll send the rest later, I told myself, closing them and dragging them out into the hallway. I looked at Shannon again. I covered her with a sheet and went into my son's room. I kissed his head, trying not to wake him. I'm sorry, Danny, I never meant to hurt you and Mom, I whispered, closing the door behind me. I loaded up the car, then went back into the house, grabbed my notebook, and sat down at the kitchen table. Over the next hour, I poured everything that was in my soul onto paper. I told Shannon about Chris and what happened that night. I tried to explain my actions and even said that I was going to confess to her a dozen times, but I was a coward all the time. I won't even ask for a second chance because I know your opinion about cheaters. I've heard it so many times that I know it by heart. You would never really forgive me, and it would always be a problem that you would give me. I threw my face every time I came home late or we quarreled. You would always think that I was cheating on you when I went on a business trip, and I don't think that our marriage is strong enough to withstand this, unfortunately. What you could say to me doesn't compare to what I've been telling myself for the last couple of months. I've been beating myself up so much that I have nothing left inside. However, I'm not going to leave you and Danny. I might, cheater, but not a total jerk. You will both remain on my insurance and health care. All my checks from now on will go directly to our account, or rather your account. That way, you will have more than enough money for everything. Find a lawyer and have him draw up the divorce papers, and I will sign them. I know you will be fair. I'll talk to my brothers about moving my things out of the house as soon as possible so you don't have to deal with it. I apologized for letting this happen and finally told her I didn't blame her for finding someone else. It's my fault and my fault alone for pushing you into someone else's arms. I just want to say that I'm sorry for what I put you through and that I will always love you and Danny. I signed the letter, sealed it, and placed my wedding ring and cell phone on top of the envelope and moved on with my life. The next morning, I was waiting for my boss. Steve, what's wrong? I thought you were on your way to Charlotte this morning, he told me. I'm leaving in a couple of minutes. I just need to take care of a few things with HR before I leave, I told him. I plan to do a full walkthrough of all the East Coast sites this week. It will take about 7 weeks, but it will leave everyone else in the office available for other projects. Shannon will kill me if I let you do this, he replied. I gave him a 2-cent review of my current situation and told him that I needed time to get my head together and start my life over. I'm sorry to hear about you and Shannon. You were so happy, but if this is what you need to do, then so be it. So keep in touch, and if you need anything, let me know personally. We shook hands and everyone went their separate ways. I have directed HR to send my weekly checks to my account at least until I return. I took out an advance on expenses to cover the cost of food and hotels, and after giving my secretary, Carrie, my new cell phone number, I hit the road. I usually flew, but with 9 stops and rental cars, it was easier and cheaper to bring your own car. The first 2 weeks were hard, and I had to use all my strength to focus on what I had to do. I would call or email Kari every 2 days to update her on the progress, and she would tell me that my parents or Shannon had called and wanted to talk to me. As always, I told her to just record the message, and I would call them back when I could. My parents didn't understand how I could just leave my wife and child. I guess Shannon hasn't told them the real reason yet. Whatever. I simply said that it was my decision and asked them not to interfere. Dad agreed, but not Mom. Shannon left short messages that she would like to talk to me, but I thought, why? Trust was a huge issue for her, and I completely screwed it up. I expected the papers to arrive in a couple of weeks, but Carrie said they weren't there yet. The next 3 weeks were much easier. I found a few bugs and had to rush more than once to get everything done. The angry customer was about to cancel the order, and it took me 2 days to convince him otherwise. Give me a week, and if you're still not satisfied, I'll remove my crew and we'll go our separate ways, I told him. My crew and I worked 12 to 14 hours a day to finish on time. Hell, I had to order parts for next day delivery more than once, but it was worth it in the end. Steve, I didn't think you'd make it, but I'm pleasantly surprised that you did it, and even a day early, he said, shaking my hand. You're a man of your word, and I've expressed my satisfaction to both my boss and yours, he said, suggesting an after-work drink. I'd love to, but I'm leaving tonight and drinking and driving is a mistake I'm not going to make. I've made enough mistakes in the last few months, I said to myself. The last 4 jobs went as smoothly as clockwork. Carrie and I looked at each one the day before I arrived, so I knew exactly what to expect. All the crews started calling me the Energizer because when I arrived on site, I didn't stop until the project was completed and done right. Isn't it time for you to get back to the main office? My foreman Kenny told me one evening. Don't you have someone at home waiting for you to come back? He said with a laugh, daring me. I was, but not anymore, I answered him. Sorry, Steve, it was supposed to be a joke, he said. It was a joke. Only the joke was on me. It took me a total of 8 weeks to complete all the work. I had 1 inspection left before returning home, and I was dead tired. I've probably lost about 10 pounds in the last 4 months and thought I'd gain it back by eating on the road, but instead I lost another 5. No more love handles, I thought, looking in the mirror before going down to eat. I was sitting at a table alone when a short, red-haired woman approached me. Do you mind if I join you? I've been on the road for 2 weeks, and I'm tired of eating alone, she told me. I stood up, pulled out a chair, and handed her my menu. The steaks and seafood here are great, but stay away from the chicken, I told her. We talked for about 2 hours. She told me that she was married and had 2 children at home. I told her that I have 1 at home, but I am divorced and will probably get divorced. I gave her a rundown of my life, including Chris, and she said she was sorry to hear that. The only thing she told me was that I should contact Shannon because she might have changed her mind. She didn't know Shannon. We parted after dinner, and I wished her well, and she wished me well. It was a 6-hour drive before my last inspection, and the government inspector was there waiting for me. We went through the drawings, the specifications, and I finally got the pipelines and everything running for him. A couple of hours later, he approved the project. We shook hands, and I was free. 8 weeks, 9 jobs, and I was done and exhausted, but my boss was thrilled. Take a couple days off, and I'll see you on Monday, he told me. I hope you've sorted out your problem, because there won't be any inspections for at least a month, he said, chuckling. I told him I was going to take the scenic route home and headed back to the hotel. I packed my things, checked out of the hotel, and began the 18-hour journey home, or what used to be my home. I called Kari and told her I wouldn't see her until Monday morning, and she asked if I had called Shannon. When I said no, she exploded. You've been gone for over 8 weeks and haven't called her yet. Are you crazy? She called you every week and left messages for you to call her, and you didn't. You really are an asshole, she told me. Easy there, Carrie, you're on edge, I replied. By the way, did any packages arrive while I was away? I asked. No. Other than all that promotional mail and a few bills, you wouldn't even notice that you've been gone for 2 months, she replied. What are you even doing? Now she was joking with me. If I weren't so tired, I'd come up with a good answer. But I just want to get home and sleep for 2 days straight and get drunk. Not necessarily in that order, I told her. We said our goodbyes, and I drove another 8 hours before stopping for the night. Best Western was nice, but didn't have an attached restaurant, so I headed downtown. I had a quick dinner at Denny's and took a short walk around town. The night bar lured me. It was very dark inside, and it took me a few minutes for my eyes to adjust. A crown and a few snacks, and I was ready to spend the next hour. One after another, the girls danced, took off their clothes, and did a few moves on stage. Damn, they were in better shape than I thought. Several tried to persuade me to buy them drinks, but I refused them all. When the last girl in the rotation took the stage, I thought it was Shannon. If she weren't red and 10 centimeters taller, I would have sworn it was her. She moved up and down the pole as the guys stuffed tips into her underwear while the huge bouncer watched. At the end of the number, I told the bartender that I wanted to buy her a drink. "Hey, sailor, I heard you wanted to buy me a drink," she said, introducing herself. "My name is Candy because I'm so sweet I melt in your mouth." "And I believe that is true," I replied, offering her a choice of drink. We both knew that the bottle contained nothing but overpriced tea, but what can you do? "You looked good there. How long have you been doing this?" I asked. "Too long. I hope I have one last year left before I can be a wife and mother again," she said. "Are you married?" "Yes, I will be 7 years old in September, and I have a 5-year-old daughter. I'd like to show you a photo, but these outfits don't have pockets," she said, lifting her top and then lowering it. "What made you buy me a drink? You didn't buy other girls. I was watching," she said, sipping tea. "You look just like my wife. Hell, you could be sisters," I said, pulling out an old photo of Shannon from my wallet. "Damn, we really look alike," she said with a smile, "and the expression on your face shows that you miss her. Are you coming home to see her?" she asked. "Divorced," I replied. "I did a really stupid thing and ruined everything." "It's a shame, but a woman who looks this good would probably forgive one mistake, if it was only one," she said, looking at me as I nodded in agreement. "Well, then get out of here and go home and improve your relationship. And if it doesn't work, at least you can say you tried," she told me, and I followed her advice. I checked out of my room and got back into the car. It was almost 2:30 a.m. when I entered the city. My house was dark, and I remembered that I didn't even have a key. I left it with everything else on the counter a couple of months ago. I took a deep breath and rang the doorbell. What the hell was I thinking? I said to myself when nothing happened. When the flashlight came on and I saw Shannon looking out the window, I became scared. She opened the door, looked at me, slammed the door in my face, and turned off the light. "I guess I got my answer," I said to myself, turning and walking down the sidewalk before the door opened again. "That's all? Are you going?" "Steve, you're a real coward," she shouted at me from the door. "I don't need this shit, Shannon. Why don't you go to hell yourself?" I replied, opening the car door and getting ready to get inside. A second later, she came out of the house and stood next to my car. "Sorry, I'm probably still angry. Please come in, let's talk," she said, begging me. "Come in, I'll be there in a second," I said, getting my overnight bag out of the back seat. "Well, time to meet the lioness in her lair," I said, locking the car door. I walked in and dropped my bag at the door and went into the kitchen where Shannon was heating up the water. "You look tired. Would you like some coffee?" I asked. "Not really. What I need most is a place to lie down. If you don't mind, I'll sleep on the couch tonight and we'll talk in the morning," I told her. "Steve, I have to go to work early tomorrow. Why don't you rest and tomorrow you can sit with Danny and get closer to him again. When I get home from work, we'll talk, okay?" "Sounds good to me." I took a blanket and pillow out of the closet, and before I knew it, I was fast asleep. When I woke up, Shannon had already left, but she left me coffee and a bagel. Danny ran down the stairs and screamed when he saw me. We hugged and I kissed him until he stopped asking question after question. He spent the next half hour telling me in detail what had happened to him. Sometimes I stay at my grandma's. I have a new bike. My mom took me to Chuck E. Cheese. Can we go there today? He asked. We'll talk to Mom when she comes home, I replied. We had breakfast. I helped him get dressed and finally turned on the TV for him. We watched cartoons, and after dinner I turned on a Disney DVD, which we watched together on the couch. When I told him it was time for bed, he asked if I would be here when he woke up. I said yes, kissed him, put him to bed, and covered him with a blanket. Over the next half hour, I looked around the house. Not much has changed. The grass needs cutting. The BBQ grill was dirty as hell, and the rest of my clothes were still in the closet. Damn, why didn't my brother do the one thing I asked him to do? Hi, Mom, I said when she answered the phone. I just got back into town last night, and I wanted you to know, I said. Why didn't Dave take my clothes like I asked? I told him not to do it, my mother replied. If you want to end your marriage, you will have to do it yourself, she said in a stubborn voice. You really need to talk to Shannon and see your son. Damn it, she said louder. I'm with Danny right now, and Shannon is at work. I plan to talk to her later tonight, I told her. You're finally listening to me, she said, as only my mother could. Yes, Mom, I said as she continued to give me more advice. Mom, I have to go. Danny is waking up. I'll call you tomorrow, I told her. Steve, honey, just listen to her and don't lose your composure, was her last advice before hanging up. I showered, shaved, and almost felt human until I walked into the bedroom again. It reminded me of that night. Shannon brought that guy home, the sex we had that night. All the emotions came flooding back and my brain started screaming at me again. What the hell was I thinking? Coming back here? Tonight it's going to get ugly, and I finally accepted what I've done. I've beaten myself enough. I won't do it again, I thought to myself. We just need to get this sorted out and move on, I told myself as I got dressed. I was sitting on the bed, putting on my shoes, when my emotions took over me again. I looked around what had once been our bedroom, covered my face with my hands, and began to cry, or rather, sob like a child. We were happy, and I ruined everything. Maybe if I had talked to her right away, we could have worked things out. It's unlikely, but there would have been a chance. But now it's gone. Too much has happened. I was dragging the rest of my clothes out of the closet onto the bed when I saw Shannon in the doorway. Are you leaving again? I thought we were going to talk, she asked. What's the point, Shannon? I said without looking at her. You'll never forgive me. Hell, I'll never be able to forgive myself, I said, throwing my shirt across the room in anger. What about Danny? Are you going to give it up too? What should I tell him this time? That his dad couldn't tell him he was leaving again? That he just slithered out from under the door like a damn snake? Is this what you want me to tell him? She asked. Tell him what you want. You'll still say it, I said, a little angry at her words. You don't want to talk about it? Are you just going to throw our marriage in the trash without trying to start over? Shannon asked. Listen, you know what I did. I didn't plan this. It just happened. I was so upset that it almost killed me. And if I didn't kill our marriage, then you definitely gave him a heart attack, I told her. So we both cheated. We're even. And now we can repair our marriage, she said. Yes, of course. Two cheaters are trying to start over. The only problem is that you cheated on me with Roger before you knew what I did. And that night was not your first, I said, waiting. I'm waiting for her reaction. I only did it one evening. Sure, I danced and maybe kissed a few guys, but I never followed through until that night and I was drunk. I don't think I'm drunk enough to not bring him home for the second round. And who was this Shannon? Were you going to rub my nose in this? Show me that you can grab a guy and have sex with him in our fucking bed? What? What did you think I was going to do? Let you cuckold me in my own damn house? I shouted at her. I don't know, she shouted back at me. I was drunk, and it felt so good to have a man in my arms, someone who wanted me, and yes, it felt good, damn it. It's been over 4 months, and I needed this, she said, trying to explain her actions. And it doesn't look like you're going to do anything anytime soon. So what are you going to do at your next girls' night out? Have sex with a couple of guys? I may have ruined our marriage, for which I will never forgive myself. But you also refuse that, I said, leaning back on the bed. I'm just tired, and I don't have the fight left in me anymore, I told her. We just stood and looked at each other. Neither of us had anything to say. If Danny hadn't come running into our room, I have no idea what we would have done next. His mouth was telling Mom a mile a minute that Dad said we were going to Chuck E. Cheese tonight, so we all needed to get ready. He came over, gave me another hug, and, taking my hand, said he wanted to watch a Disney movie with me again. I looked at Shannon and went downstairs with him. Children never forget anything, especially if they want to. We ended up at Chuck E. Cheese whether we wanted to be there or not. It was quiet between us, and it felt like we were now talking to each other through Danny. When we got home and Shannon told him it was time for bed, he grabbed my hand. Dad, come on. Mom said we need to get ready for bed, as he led me to his room. I undressed him, washed him, and put him to bed. Dad, I'm going to make you breakfast tomorrow, he told me. I love you, Daddy, he said, hanging his head for the night. I wanted to fucking cry. Why don't you stay in the spare room until we figure this out? Shannon suggested. This way Danny can be happy, at least for a while, she said with red eyes. I agreed and moved my things into our spare bedroom, and for the next week we lived like a happy family, although it was only in appearance. Are you going out on Friday? Shannon asked Friday morning. No, just spending the night at home. Why? I was going out with some friends after work, she said. If you're going to have sex, do it somewhere else. Just don't bring him home. That's all I ask, I said. What do you think about me? For your information, I haven't been with anyone since that night, she shot back. Unlike you. Sorry to disappoint you, Shannon. I haven't been with anyone since the last night I got Roger's leftovers, I replied. Like I said, do whatever you want, just not here, I said before leaving for work. If nothing else, the work was going well. Rumor had it that my last long business trip had saved the company a lot of money, and I was due for a promotion. I heard that nothing was certain, but my prospects looked good. Shannon got home around 11:30 on Friday night and looked hotter than I had seen her in a long time. I was reading the newspaper in the living room when she came in. To be honest, I was waiting for her. Did you have fun? I asked. Maybe. What time did Danny go to bed? I put him to bed at 8:00 p.m., but he didn't finally fall asleep until about 8:45 p.m., I replied. Do you want something to drink? I asked. No, I'm a little tired, and I think I'll just go to bed. Good night, she said, going upstairs. I locked the door and followed her upstairs. I took off my pants and shirt and threw them into the laundry basket. In my underpants, I went in to check on Danny. As I walked past Shannon's bedroom, I kind of took a peek inside. She was naked entering the shower. I instantly became horny. Looks like it's still working, I said as I walked into my room and climbed into bed. She probably had sex and needed a shower to cleanse herself. Lucky, I thought to myself as I fell asleep. We had a family weekend. We went to the zoo, walked by the lake, and on Sunday we were going to have a barbecue. One thing I've noticed since I've been back is that Shannon is now a full-blown alcoholic. She drank before dinner, usually a bottle of wine with dinner, and at least 2 or 3 drinks before bed. More than once I thought that I would have to carry her upstairs and put her to bed. On Sunday, she was half drunk before dinner. Steve, would you like a drink? She asked. I'm making a jar of salty dogs. No thanks, I'll just get a beer, I replied. Your problem, she said as I heard the blender grinding ice. I had no idea how much she drank, but by the time I put Danny to bed, the jug was empty and she was sitting at the kitchen table with her head down on the table. Damn, she's drunk as hell, I said to myself as I finished cleaning. Looks like they'll need to be put to bed tonight, I said, lifting her out of her chair. I can walk on my own, she said, falling to the floor. Of course you can, I said, picking her up off the floor and carrying her to her room. I carefully laid her on the bed and took off her sandals. When she tried to sit up and take off her blouse, she fell back onto the bed. I unfastened it, pulled my hands out, and pulled it all the way down. I parted her shorts and pulled them down. I decided it was best to remove her bra. Damn, it's still not something I've ever seen. God, she was still beautiful, I thought to myself as I sat on the bed next to her. She was unconscious, so I did something I probably shouldn't have done, given the circumstances. I kissed her, not just once, but a couple of times. I still love you, Shannon, and I think I always will, I said, kissing her again and touching her breasts. I remembered the last time we did this and didn't want to do it again. Monday morning, Shannon kept looking at me, and I didn't understand why. After dinner on Monday, when Danny had gone to bed, drink in hand, she asked me if I had enjoyed undressing her on Sunday night. Did you play with me a little? I didn't notice any traces, so apparently you didn't go too far. Too bad. You probably liked it, she said, draining her glass. You used to love this. Last time it was a mistake. I was angry and took advantage of you, and I'm sorry for that, I told her. I don't, and it looks like you finally solved your problem, she said, taking another drink. Yeah, it took my wife cheating on me to get the excitement back, I said, and then immediately regretted it. Shannon, I'm sorry, I started, but the damage was already done. Fuck you, Steve. If you were a man who could satisfy me at home, I wouldn't have to look for someone else. So kiss my ass, you hypocritical idiot, she screamed as she walked upstairs. Gee, that went well, I said, plopping down in a chair. When I finally went to my room, I heard Shannon crying in her bedroom. I probably should have tried to apologize again, but I just quietly crept into my room and stared at the ceiling until I fell asleep. What we were doing was unclear to either of us. I waited for her to file for divorce, and it seemed like she was doing the same. We were polite to each other, and a couple of times over the next month, it would be like how it was before all this nonsense. And then one of us would say something stupid, and we'd start fighting again. I was running out of patience. When I found out I got the promotion, I was thrilled. Now I was responsible for all field crews. It wasn't much more money, but finally I didn't have to travel every couple of weeks. We are planning a small dinner for you on Saturday night. Nothing special, just managers and field crew leaders, my boss told me. So I'm expecting you and Shannon at the Tonys at 8 p.m., and congratulations again, he said, shaking my hand. You deserved it. Are you doing anything on Saturday night? I asked her that evening. Why, she answered. We've been invited to a dinner my boss is hosting, I told her, trying not to mention the reason. Do you want me to come with you? It would be nice if you came, but only if you want, I told her. Okay, I will go. What time and where will it be? She asked. I gave her the details and our week went smoothly. She cut down on her drinking and I really started to enjoy being home again. Maybe this will work, I thought to myself. On Saturday, when she came downstairs, Shannon took my breath away. She was amazing. I bought this little dress. What do you think? She asked. You look beautiful, I said, which made her smile. It was a little quiet in the car while we were driving. We talked about all sorts of, for lack of a better word, bullshit. I'm glad you asked me, she finally said when we arrived at Tony. Everyone congratulated me and shook my hand, and Shannon looked on with a puzzled look. Over dinner, my boss made a little speech about how well I had done my job and how I would now stay home watching Shannon. What the hell is going on? She asked. I told her about my promotion, and instead of being happy, she got an annoyed expression on her face. And you were going to tell me when? She asked. If I hadn't come, would you have just left a note on the damn kitchen table? she said, now a little annoyed. I just thought it would be a nice surprise for you tonight. I won't have to go on business trips anymore, I told her. How long have you known about this? She asked. Since Tuesday, I replied. So I needed to hear some important news from your boss. And it looks like I'm the last one to hear about it, as usual, she said, standing up and heading towards the bar. That probably didn't go over too well, I thought to myself, thanking a few people. I probably should have said something before we got here, but I thought she would be happy for me. Apparently, to her it looked like I was hiding something again. I just can't win, I told myself as I went to find Shannon. An hour later, she was already well drunk and swaying to the beat of the DJ's music. I probably should have approached her, but I just watched from afar as one after another the men asked her to dance. I was drinking, and when the last guy put his hands on her ass, I burst onto the dance floor and pulled him off. Get your damn hands off my wife, I told him too loudly. And Shannon, if you're so determined to have sex tonight, at least be respectful and don't do it in front of me, I told her. The slap came completely unexpectedly, but I felt heat and pain on my cheek almost immediately. The last thing I remember was Shannon running out of the room and Ronnie apologizing for touching her bottom. Steve, I didn't do anything. Honestly, I would never touch your wife. Believe me, Steve, he said, but I no longer listened, but looked for Shannon. She disappeared, not only from the hall, but also from Tony. How she got home, I had no idea. All I remember was me trying to apologize through the locked bedroom door, but other than a few sobs, there was silence. She didn't leave the room until a little after 11 azur, and her eyes were beet red. I want you to leave today. I don't care where you go. Just go and get all your things. I never want to see you again. With these words, she went upstairs again. My brothers and I spent Sunday afternoon moving my things. I don't know if Shannon was still in her bedroom or if she went to her mother's to pick up Danny. I ruined everything for what seems like the last time. I left her a note telling her how sorry I was and that I probably should have told her before dinner, but I thought she'd be glad I didn't have to travel anymore. This time I had nothing left to leave with the note. My mom gave me a fever for the next 2 weeks. You better get on your knees and beg her to take you back, she told me. I told her that it was too late for that. My father didn't comment other than to say that we never discussed our problems, and he was right. 2 weeks later, I was served with divorce papers. I wasn't surprised that she used the law firm she worked for, but what surprised me was the terms of the divorce. They were so one-sided that it was almost funny, but not funny. I tried to call her and ask her what the hell she was doing, but she didn't pick up. Using the law firm our company uses, I was able to organize the response paperwork in about 2 weeks. I decided to take this to the extreme by asking for everything she was asking for, including full custody and citing infidelity and alcoholism as the basis. We played this game of back and forth. This time she called me screaming what exactly I cheated on, and since she didn't give cheating as a reason, why did I do it? I just told her to let my lawyer handle it and hung up. A fierce struggle began because I was not going to back down on any of my terms. My lawyer got me the right to see my child every other weekend, and I took full advantage of this. Shannon would drop Danny off at my parents' house, and I would pick him up from there. Shannon wants to know why you're acting this way, my mom asked me one Friday night when I came to pick up Danny. She just wants to move on with her life, and you're stopping her from doing that. Mom, she started first. I came back to try to save our marriage, and she went crazy on me. She filed for divorce first and asked for everything, including a pound of my flesh, I said, perhaps too loudly. Darling, she explained that one of the overzealous lawyers convinced her that if she asked for everything, she could always negotiate for less later. She's sorry it happened this way. And why did you indicate treason? Shannon would never cheat on you, my mom said. Mom, we both cheated. I told her the brutal truth while she sat there with her mouth open in surprise. You both need to sit down and talk. This has already gone too far. Think about what that does to Danny. You both let your egos get the better of you, and now you're both digging your heels in, and it's not nice, she scolded me. I told her not to interfere, but my mother never listened, especially if she thought she was right. This went on for several more weeks. Work was busy, and I started to develop a schedule that started to work, at least for me. I was working too much, and my boss was the first to notice. "Steve, slow down. You can't solve all the world's problems in the first couple of months. I can't let my star burn out in the first 6 months. Get yourself organized, and I don't want you to work more than 9 hours a day. That's an order," he said with a smile as he walked out of my office. After work, Bob invited me for drinks. "Come on, buddy, let's get out of here and relax. I'll even buy the first round," he said, throwing me my coat. The place wasn't crowded, but it filled up quickly. Thursday nights have always been popular. Everyone thought they could survive Friday, even with a hangover. We were on our second beer when I saw her at the bar. Shannon poured drinks, which had become her signature style, and the guy next to her made sure her glass was always full. He was quite big and kept trying to touch her while she kept pushing him away. What caught my attention was that he kept looking at his two friends at the next table, and that's when I saw it. Shannon had just gotten a new drink, and when she turned away, the guy slipped something into her drink. Before I could get up, Shannon put it to her lips and started drinking, and the guy had this satisfied grin on his face. It only took me 10 steps to get to the bar. He didn't even understand what happened. My half-empty bottle smashed on his forehead, and he fell in a heap. "You fucking bastard," I screamed. I asked the bartender to call the police and an ambulance because he had put something in my wife's drink. His two friends disappeared when I turned around. The bouncers dragged the bastard back while Shannon just sat there, eyes wide open, but not for long. After a couple of minutes, she started feeling dizzy, and I had to carry her into the back room and put her on the couch. The police took her glass as evidence, handcuffed the guy, and put him in the back of a police car. The ambulance had already arrived, and after searching the bastard's pockets, they found what he had given her. After starting her Roman 4, they took her away, and I gave my statement to the police while Bob watched. 20 minutes later, I finished and went out to the parking lot. "Are you going to the hospital?" Bob asked me. "No, she won't be herself for a while, and there's nothing I can do," I told him. "She owes you, and quite a lot. If you hadn't been watching her, who knows what they would have done with her," Bob told me as a group of journalists arrived. It must have been a slow evening. I got my 15 seconds of fame. The evening news showed me, and I told what happened. I still called Shannon my wife, which was true, and said that I hoped the police would catch the two accomplices who had escaped. Half an hour later, I was on my way back to my quiet apartment. My mom called and wanted to know all the details. Even Shannon's parents called to thank me, which didn't surprise me because I've always loved them. They said they were sorry about Shannon and me, and I said I was more sorry than anyone else. I finally picked up the phone because I didn't really want to talk to anyone anymore. Everyone at work thought I was a hero, thanks to Bob and the evening news. I told everyone thank you, but enough is enough, and that we all have work to do. By midday, the excitement had died down, and by 2 o'clock in the afternoon, everything was back to normal, whatever that means. A week later, police said they had caught the other two, and Shannon filed a lawsuit. Believe it or not, I was told that the guy I hit with a bottle is suing me for assault. They told me not to worry because the judge would probably reject it, and that's what happened. All three accepted the plea deal, and only the one who actually put something in her drink will go to prison. Life went on after everything calmed down. "Steve, Shannon has withdrawn her divorce petition," my lawyer told me on Wednesday. No reason was given. "Do you still want to continue with yours?" he asked. "Hold it for now, and I'll get back to you later," I replied, wondering what to do next. Danny was unusually excited on Saturday. He told me about the new games his grandma got him and that every Tuesday and Thursday his grandma takes him out to dinner. Looks like Shannon is back to her old ways, I thought with disgust. I thought she learned her lesson last time, but apparently she doesn't care anymore. We went to the movies that afternoon and spent the afternoon at the pool at my complex on Sunday. I bought Danny an inflatable vest, and he happily jumped into the water and bounced like a cork in the shallow water of the pool. I was tired of Chuck E. Cheese, so we had our own BBQ with hot dogs, and by 7:30 p.m. we headed to Mom's to take him. "I love you, Dad," he said when we arrived at my mother's. "When are you going to come back home?" he asked. What can you tell a 4-year-old boy when he asks such a question? I was about to lay the groundwork for a conversation about Mom and Dad getting a divorce when he told me that Mom cries every night. "Dad, come home so Mommy will stop crying," he said, hugging me. I told him it would be soon and gave it to my mom. "Shannon will be here soon. Do you want to wait?" Mom asked. My look said it all. "Just thought I'd ask. You'll have to talk eventually, and since you're both too stubborn to listen, I just thought I could help a little," she said. "Mom, Shannon filed for divorce first. She never gave me a chance to apologize or explain what happened. I'm just tired of all these shitty fights. If she wants to talk to me, she knows where I live," I said, leaving before I got any more upset. Why is it always the boy's fault when something like this happens? I thought to myself as I returned home. On Wednesday, I received an email from Shannon at work. "Dinner on Friday at my house, 7:00 p.m., and bring a gift for Danny. If I don't hear back from you, I'll assume you'll come." 1st of July, I said to myself. What date is this? It wasn't his birthday or anything, and I was confused. I replied that I would be there, and for the next 24 hours, I just went crazy trying to remember what I forgot. I ended up just buying something on the way to the house. I'll probably find out when I get there. I knocked on the door and Shannon opened it, although this time she didn't slam it in my face. Dinner was already on the table and Danny grabbed my hand and led me to my chair. "I helped my mother prepare dinner," he said proudly, sitting down in his large seat. Dinner passed quietly. We talked about all sorts of trifles, as usual. Like my new job. Her parents had just returned from a cruise. The potato pie recipe was from my mom, and so our dinner went on. When we were done, I helped with the dishes, or rather, I helped Danny carry the dishes to the dishwasher. Desserts were pecan pie, ice cream, and thank God coffee. One thing I noticed was that Shannon hadn't had a drink the entire evening. She may have had a couple of drinks before I arrived, but she didn't even look a little drunk. I was grateful for this. I gave Danny his gift. He tore open the packaging in 3 seconds and was delighted when he saw that it was a new Disney cartoon. He took me by the hand and led me into the living room, telling me to insert the disc. After sitting me down on the couch, he went into the kitchen and pulled Shannon out, sitting her next to me. For the next 90 minutes, the cartoon played, but neither of us watched it. We were busy looking at each other periodically. Danny wanted to watch it again, but Shannon said it was late and he needed to get ready for bed. Again, he took my hand and led me to his room as we prepared him for bed. I kissed him goodnight after reading him the same book twice. Fortunately, it was short. I turned off the light, closed the door, and went down to the kitchen. Shannon was sitting at the kitchen table, drinking coffee. I went to the coffee pot, poured myself a cup, and sat down opposite her. "I just want to say how sorry I am," she began. "I was hurt that night of your dinner, that you didn't tell me in advance, and that everyone knew but me. I guess I should have remembered that it was your night, not mine, and just got through it. Instead, I got drunk and didn't even understand what was happening. You have to believe me when I say that the last thing on my mind was picking up someone at your dinner. I was mad at you, but I'm not a complete idiot. What you told me struck me to the core. You might have thought it, but you shouldn't have said it out loud in front of everyone. You made me look like an idiot, and I hated you for it. I thought we were starting to get things right, and after that I just wanted you to leave." Shannon, I let my brain get ahead of my mouth. I didn't think so and immediately regretted it as soon as it came out of my mouth. Looks like I've been apologizing too much lately, I told her. I wish I could say how we could have messed everything up like that, but I already know how. I guess I should have confessed when I got back that Friday night. It was just that I didn't want to lose you, that's all. If you did that, I know I would be angry, but how angry I will never know. After letting it go for so long, I thought you didn't love me anymore. I was sure you were having an affair, and after a while it didn't matter to me anymore. I just started moving away from you, waiting for the other shoe to drop, she said, her eyes filling with tears. Roger was a huge mistake, plain and simple. I don't know why I brought him home, maybe to make you angry enough to fight for me. Instead, you just walked away and left me to decide what to do next. So I didn't do anything. I knew you'd come back eventually, so I just decided to wait it out and figure it out with you when you got back. Then things got complicated again. I'm so sorry, she said, starting to cry. My father was right. We never sat down and talked. We were just avoiding problems and throwing insults at each other, I said as I sat and looked at her. What do you want, Shannon? Where do we go from here? I asked. Steve, I want another chance, and if we fail, at least we tried. I gave up alcohol, which had become my mainstay, and, as you know, I withdrew all divorce papers. I don't know if we can make this work, but damn, I want to try if you're ready. I got up from my chair and walked over and hugged her. We didn't kiss or express our love in words. We just stood there hugging each other for a long time. You need to move back, and I don't mean into the guest room. If we are going to try again, it should be like husband and wife, without any games, she said, holding my hand. I wish I could say we made passionate love that night, and I made the ground shake for Shannon, but that didn't happen. We kissed, but I went home that night and started moving back the next day. I wasn't sure if it would work, so I kept my apartment. This was our first disagreement. If you know you have a place to go if things get too tough, it's never going to work. Get rid of the apartment if you're serious about trying it, she said. A week later, it was sold. We started therapy a week later because we didn't know where to start and didn't want to make the same mistakes. We got angry and cried and yelled at each other, but we got through it. The pain was still there, but over time, even that began to fade. As Shannon said one day in a session, Steve, I forgive you for what you did. It's just going to take time for me to forget, but I'm working on it. We made love 3 days after I returned. It was awkward at best and only lasted about 20 minutes the first time. Apart from therapy, we agreed never to mention Roger and Chris. Will we be able to hold on? I think so because we are committed to our marriage again, but it will still take work. We now spend one night a week actually talking. This usually happens in bed, and the sex afterwards is great. It seems like talking is a damn good aphrodisiac for us. And what is the 1st of July? It was the night of Danny's conception many years ago. I think she wanted to do it again that night, and if I had remembered, we probably would have done it. Subscribe to our channel so that your second chaff doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think about listening to the next one.